Coming up tonight on the news at 5, Highway Patrol troopers reveal a deadly trend on Montana's roads. Plus,
I'm Mike Dennison at the Capitol. The 2021 legislature starts on Monday. Coming up, we'll give you a preview.
From Montana's news leader, this is MTN News at 5.
good afternoon and welcome to the news at 5. I'm Marian Davidson. Thanks for joining us. Well, new tonight at 5, the governor's office announced the state's COVID-19 vaccine distribution plan has been updated to incorporate new federal recommendations. The plan outlines an updated timeline for vaccine distribution. Phase 2, in which all Montanans will be eligible to get the vaccine, is estimated to take place late spring to early summer 2021. Nearly 17,000 Montana frontline workers have gotten the vaccine in the first and current stage, Phase 1A. The updated plan expands that phase to include additional healthcare workers with direct patient contact, like, for example, dentists and physical therapists.
That's an exciting component where we can actually see our work come together. So I think all the work now is beginning to pay off as we move through these phases. The one thing that we've learned is to be very flexible in what we do. We can plan and then our plans change, and that's just the nature of the process for us.
The next phase is expected to begin mid-January. Now, we have a link to the full plan on our website, ktvh.com. And residents in the Montana VA's Miles City Community Living Center got their first dose of the Moderna vaccine, and MTN's John Riley caught up with some of the veterans and has their take on the vaccine.
The VA's Community Living Center in Miles City is the only VA nursing home in the state. They care for a number of patients with different conditions, but one common trait is all of their conditions make them more at risk for serious complications from COVID-19.
I have COPD, which is a breathing problem. And so if I did get the virus, I don't think I'd be around very long.
Marine Corps veteran Roland Bannister said he was happy to get his first vaccine dose on Wednesday, along with other residents. Bannister noted the shot made him a little tired, but wasn't bad, especially considering it means the eventual return to some normalcy.
Just being able to jump in my car and go someplace without having to worry about maybe being, getting the virus. Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
A lot of the veterans getting vaccinated indicated they were doing so not only to protect themselves, but out of a sense of duty to protect others.
I can't see why a person wouldn't want to take the vaccine. Anytime you get vaccinated against a disease, all you're doing is taking a precaution against getting sick. And I've had enough injuries and stuff that I can tell you it's not fun recuperating from things. You're not only protecting yourself, you're keeping yourself from getting it and spreading it to other people.
Residents of the VA's Community Living Center in Miles City have been on lockdown since the beginning of the pandemic to protect the vulnerable population. Nurse manager Jennifer Kransky says the veterans in her care have been inspiring examples of exactly what it means to serve your country.
Every time we walk in this door, we have the honor to serve those who served us. And that's the way we have to think about it.
Staff at the VA hope that in the coming months, if people have questions about the vaccine, they reach out to their primary care provider and think of the generations who are most at risk. Reporting in Helena, John Riley, MTN News.
Now taking a look at the state's COVID-19 situation, COVID-19 cases and deaths are back on the rise in Montana. Local and state numbers show 10 more deaths reported since last night, raising the statewide death total to 989, while active cases sit at just around 5,300. Active hospitalizations rose slightly as well from yesterday to 223. MTN uses a combination of state and locally confirmed data, and because of that, our numbers may differ from the state dashboard. All right, and now Andy Curtis is filling in for Curtis Grevenitz this evening. Andy, what is happening out there?
A little bit of snow high up, so you're probably seeing it in the distance, especially if you're in Helena. You're noticing it way off in the mountains, and that's where it should be staying for the rest of the night. The only time that could be an issue is if you're heading up over some of the mountain passes. So we'll take a look. Rogers Pass, not looking too bad right now, but still give yourself plenty of time and take it slow. Wind and ice could be like this, making it a little bit more of a slower ride, a little bit more of a dicier ride. As you can see, it's getting cloudy and overcast up there as the sun's starting to set, and those roads, though they've certainly been worse, they don't look perfect. So give yourself plenty of time if you're heading up over Mac Pass. So we got some mountain snow out there, but again, very little, maybe 3 inches at the most in areas. And we, once again, have some wind over the next couple of days. But as we welcome in 2021, we've got a warm weekend on our hands. I'll tell you more about that in the full forecast.
All right, thanks for that, Andy. Americans hoping the next round of COVID-19 relief will balloon from $600 to $2,000 may end up disappointed. Democrats' efforts to pump up the check was shut down by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. McConnell offering his own bill with the increase, but with 2 more items President Donald Trump demands. It establishes a voter fraud commission and removes protections for tech firms like Facebook and Twitter for the content they publish. Now, Democrats rejecting that bill look to the next Congress for more relief. The makeup of that Congress hinges on 2 critical Georgia runoffs next week, which will determine which party controls the Senate. And the Senate has another vote coming as well. It is expected to override the president's veto of a bill funding the U.S. military. Well, tonight, a deadly trend on Montana roadways. Authorities say the number of fatal crashes spiked in 2020. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian talked to Montana Highway Patrol about what may have contributed to the concerning trend.
Through December 28th, the Montana Highway Patrol had reported a roughly 12% increase in fatal crashes compared with 2019. Leaders say what particularly concerns them are the risk factors that contributed to those crashes. MHP has cataloged 184 fatal crashes and 207 deaths on the roads, up from 165 crashes and 183 deaths through the same time last year. The number of crashes where troopers determined excessive speed played a role rose by more than 23%, and those linked to alcohol and drugs rose by 32% and 17% respectively.
It just never mixes well when you mix alcohol and drugs in driving.
One of the biggest changes involves seatbelt use. In 71 deadly crashes this year, MHP confirmed someone wasn't wearing a seatbelt. That's up 40% from last year.
That's a significant number. That's not just a fluctuation. And so more people driving faster, not wearing their seatbelts on the interstate that possibly are utilizing drugs and alcohol when they get behind the wheel.
MHP says even 1 fatality on the roads is too many, and these numbers are alarming. They're urging drivers to remember the small steps that can go a long way to reducing the risk.
These fatalities affect so many people and their families. Nobody goes out on the interstate or on the primary roadways wanting to be involved in a fatality crash. Think of those family members when you've had alcohol to drink or drugs, or don't click that seatbelt. It's very easy to get in a ride with somebody, click your seatbelt on, and slow down.
This year's large increase came after the number of fatal crashes didn't change much between 2018 and 2019. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
The biggest increase in deadly crashes this year was in MHP's Great Falls district, which includes much of central Montana. It has seen 19 fatal crashes in 2020, and that's up from just 9 last year. And when we come back, Andy Curtis will have a complete check of your forecast in Storm Tracker weather, and later, a legislative session like no other. Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison breaks it all down for us.
Welcome back, everybody. Andy Curtis filling in for Curtis Grevenens tonight, and an overcast and crisp day out there across Montana. Temperature currently in Great Falls, 38 degrees, but pretty gusty up there as well. 37 mile-per-hour gusts on the high end, and we saw that consistent and sustained wind at around 26 miles per hour. So, of course, that combined with the overcast conditions, that makes it feel a lot cooler than it is. 26 degrees is what you would be thinking it was if you walked outside not having watched this program. So down in the Helena area, 31 degrees, 24 is what it feels like, and that wind, if I would get out of the way, you can see it, 7 miles per hour. So a calmer day in the capital city compared to up around Great Falls, and again, that's usually the case around here. So taking a look at the wind speeds, 26 like we saw in Great Falls, also windy up in Cutbank, 29 degrees, but calm at the moment in Havre. Not too bad in Lewistown, Bozeman, Bozeman looking really calm as well. Same with Butte. So it looks like the really gusty and windy spots on the state on the map here. Livingston, of course, 35 miles per hour. So if you think it's windy in Great Falls right now, count your lucky stars that you're not down in Livingston, because it's really calm compared to that. And that wind will be sticking around tomorrow as we are preparing to celebrate the end of 2020 and welcoming in 2021. You see wind speeds up along the Rocky Mountain front, of course, are still consistent and strong. But as we get into Thursday afternoon, except for along the Rocky Mountain front, we'll start to calm down just a little bit. Now, of course, there's some pockets as we head into New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Not awful, a little windy, but not awful. And again, looks like the only consistent wind speeds as far as being very strong are going to be along the Rocky Mountain front. Then as we get into Friday afternoon, early evening while you're watching our show on Friday, wind will start to pick up a little bit around Great Falls one more time. So temperatures across the state, 32 in Lewistown, 33 in Havre. Great Falls, like we saw, was 38, 36 up in Cut Bank, 27 in Kalispell and Missoula. Most of the snow that we saw today up in the higher elevations and out to the west is, as you can see, up around that area of the state, and that's really where it will be staying. No real chance, as far as it looks like right now, to see any snowfall accumulating or reaching us down at Helena or up in Great Falls. Cut Bank maybe a little bit, but for the most part, any of that snow that is coming down is going to be up in the higher elevations. Again, always use caution when going up over those mountain passes this time of the year. And today especially, even though it's not a blizzard, blowing conditions could make driving conditions just a little extra tricky. Tomorrow, a little bit of snow sticking around early in the morning, again up in the higher elevations, so nothing we should really worry about hitting the roadways down in the lower parts of the states. And temperatures in the Great Falls area looking pretty good. We're in the 40s for the next couple of days, almost pushing 50, 49 degrees for the expected high on Sunday. And then in Helena, things are a little bit cooler, but just a little. Still pretty warm though, high 30s New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And this weekend looking pretty good. Calm at the moment, calm, and a good decent amount of sunshine with some clouds mixed in there. So a decent weekend and a pretty good way to kick off 2021.
All right, thanks for that, Andy. This coming Monday, the 2021 Montana Legislature will convene at the Capitol. And as Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison tells us, this legislative session, kicking off in the middle of a pandemic and with a new Republican governor, will be like no other.
For starters, lawmakers and their staff must navigate how to run a session when many of the people involved for health reasons won't even be in the building, and keep it safe for those who are. Senate President Mark Blaisdell, a Republican from Kalispell, says arrangements are being made so members of the public and lawmakers who don't want to be in the Capitol can take part remotely. Limits will be placed on how many people can be in a committee room to testify on bills. But when it comes to some public health restrictions meant to slow the spread of COVID-19, majority Republicans are not imposing them. Legislators won't be required to wear masks at the Capitol, and it's not clear yet how people will socially distance in the sometimes crowded hallways.
My hope is that the Capitol run is kind of open as possible for those that want to participate. I think it'd be very difficult to try to administer a lot of different rules on that.
Minority Democrats say they'll be wearing masks in the Capitol, and that the lack of a comprehensive plan puts at risk those who work in the building and maybe others across the state.
And our concern is for communities all across the state that can be impacted by bad behavior at the Capitol. We need a clear plan that's safe.
Republicans have created a COVID-19 response panel composed of legislative leaders that will meet next week and discuss any plans. Yet, regardless of safety plans, the session gets underway next week, with Republicans holding big majorities and, for the first time in 16 years, a Republican governor, Greg Gianforte. When asked about priorities for the GOP majority, Blaisdell says they'll be focusing on Gianforte's Montana comeback plan to boost the economy. But this plan is 12 pages long, with scores of proposals. So what specifically are we talking about? Blaisdell says an overarching theme will be changes that make it easier for businesses to operate. For example, acquiring environmental permits.
I think just adding a layer of predictability of, if you go in and you file this and you check these boxes, that this is the time frame that it should be done in, for that process to move forward.
Gianforte himself says don't expect grand sweeping proposals, but rather incremental change to help improve Montanans' economic fortunes.
I think you win games with 3 to 5 yard plays. And we're going to run a set of plays here in this first legislative session that are directionally correct, that helps Montanans start to prosper again. And then we're going to huddle up, move the chains, and run some more plays.
Gianforte also has met personally with Democratic leaders who say they may share some goals with him and his fellow Republicans on providing needed services to Montanans. But Republicans have the majorities to move whatever they want, and Democrats may be left on the sideline, playing only the vocal objectors.
We hope that we can partner with them to deliver for communities, but we're going to be there to hold them accountable, to governing in a responsible way.
And as always, there's the unpredictability of every session, perhaps even more so in 2021, with the cloud of the pandemic still hanging over us. At MTN News, we'll be here reporting on how it all unfolds. At the Capitol, I'm Mike Dennison.
Well, tomorrow we take a closer look at the operational details of the session as it gets underway next week. And coming up next on the news at 5, a preview of the upcoming basketball season for the Fairfield Eagles.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching MTN News at 5.
Welcome back to the news at 5. The high school basketball season officially opens on Saturday, and in Fairfield, the faces may change, but the expectations remain the same. MTN's Tom Wiley has more on the Eagles.
In 14 seasons at Fairfield, Dustin Gordon led the Eagles girls basketball team to 7 state championships, 295 wins, and a state record 120 straight victories in a row, spanning 5 seasons. But Gordon stepped down in the offseason when he was named the superintendent of Fairfield Schools, and stepping in for the legend is another legend. Travis Schenk takes the reins of the program.
I got a great relationship with Dustin. We still communicate a lot, and I think it starts in practice here, working our butts off and making sure we're taking care of business in practice and putting it all out there and see what happens.
Schenk played for Fairfield when the Eagle boys won a handful of state titles in the 1990s. Then he led the boys program from 2004 to 11. He's been helping with the elementary teams for the past few years, but is excited for return to the prep bench.
I feel like he really understands the dynamic of our team and what he's trying to get. And I feel like it's really fitting well with the personalities that we have, and we're all really starting to understand it. And it is a change, but it's a good change, and we're all just embracing it.
The Fairfield boys are also in a position to regroup. The Eagles advanced to the Class B state title in March, only to see the tournament called off and be named co-champs, which led to some conflicting feelings for the Eagles.
It was an awesome season, being able to make it to the state chipper, and then we make it to the state championship and figure out that we can't play. It was devastating for all of us, but we're grateful that we get a banner up on the wall.
Fairfield only lost 2 seniors, albeit talented ones like Keely Bake, but they returned the talents to compete for district, divisional, and state hardware. And as the saying goes, players graduate, tradition doesn't.
We've been very successful with extracurricular things, students staying eligible, which is the most important part, and then just success on the court. We play as a team, we play as a unit.
1, 2, 3, Eagles! Tom Wiley, MTN Sports.
Both teams open the season January 5th at Shelby. And up next, a unique fundraiser for animals in need. But first, here's Lester Holt with a look at what's ahead on Nightly News.
Ahead for us, California confirms its first case of a new strain of COVID after 2 cases were reported in Colorado, and new insights into the man who set off that bomb on Christmas in Nashville. Those stories and much more ahead on Nightly News.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching MTN News at 5.
Well, a Great Falls Tea Shop is raising money to help animals in need. In Cahoots for Tea is selling some Christmas items 50% off and has a whole shelf with items marked down that you can make any offer on. Proceeds will go to the McLean Cameron Animal Adoption Center in the city. The shop's owner says she tries to do something every year to help the center.
It's a worthy cause. Every animal deserves a good home, and I believe in it wholeheartedly. And I just wish a lot more people would get on board with it.
We've made $240 of our $500 goal.
Now she plans to continue the sale and having the items on the shelf until she reaches that $500 goal.
A little
little bit of snow in the forecast today, more in the mountains than down where the towns and valleys are across the state, but temperatures are looking pretty good as we head into the new year. 45 in Great Falls, or 44 in Great Falls tomorrow rather. First day of 2021, 45 degrees, and then this weekend almost 50 around the Electric City. Then in the Helena area, temperatures a little cooler, a little less windy, but still we've got a pretty nice weekend ahead of us.
All right, thanks for making us a part of your evening. NBC Nightly News is up next.